These are esoteric wisdom practices that have been treasured and preserved for approximately thousands of years. And there are several references to this all over internet. Just search the Book of Enoch and you'll get a lot of results. One of the people who've become godlike was Enoch, and he established the city of Enoch, which has become holy that it crossed this dimension. There are specific signatures and across scripture as revealed in this book. We find connections to individuals receiving keys, and we have all heard of Peter's keys, Melchizedek's keys, Enoch's keys. J.J. Hertak also wrote a book titled The Keys of Enoch. If you want to understand more about this, you should read it. And I believe there is a frequency. Perhaps it's a frequency connection. It's possible that an incarnation connection links some of these persons throughout history. And each of them have sigils, which is sort of intriguing, even as lately as Saint Germain. Saint Germain was a remarkable man from the 18th century who everyone assumed lived for several centuries. Even though he was highly personable and could maintain a conversation, he never tried to eat at dinner and did not age, according to what people say about him. And you'll encounter him throughout history, such as during the American Revolution. He's like popping up in different areas. This person is remarkable since he speaks several languages. He's highly charming, and some assumed he was a charlatan since he could not possibly have known and done what he appears to have understood and accomplished in his lifetime, unless he had lived several lifetimes. So there's a lot of history about this guy, and many people feel that he's tapping within the same frequency or maybe even a reincarnation of Thoth of Hermes. That reminds me of one of the 7 Hermetic principles, which is the law of cause and effect. That any cause has an effect, and so every effect has a cause, is also how I feel towards randomness. What exactly is randomness? It's merely a boundary condition wherein our wisdom ends and our ignorance starts, and as human consciousness increases, we push the border out further, possibly at the speed of light. It's intriguing that the entire universe is expanding at roughly the same rate. Perhaps it's simply our consciousness. There was a famous quote by Max Planck. Max Planck is the mentor who made Einstein famous, because Einstein, who was working as a patent clerk and needed someone well known in the academic establishment to sponsor him. Max Planck was well known for numerous accomplishments, notably in quantum physics. He and Einstein did not always agree on everything. He believed that the universe is built on perception. He stated that there is no such thing, therefore we must assume that at the core of everything is actually a conscious mind, and then when you consider about it in those conditions, you begin to realize. That's why I've gotten to the viewpoint that we have that you, and you have that you in the universe around yourself. Therefore, everything is a mental construct from which we cannot dissociate. There is no such thing as absolute objective reality in the setting of every one of us seeing the world through our particular prism. This is therefore what we consider to be objective. We all believe that our vision of anything is objective, but as our consciousness develops, we understand differently. When you understand that the universe is intellectual, there are numerous approaches to looking at the same objects or circumstances, and there's a rational explanation why the very first Hermetic principles is mentalism. It's so core, it's understanding all the rest, each stacks on each other, and when you realize that, then you start realizing that every experience that you have is not just happening to you, it's actually happening for you. It's up to you to decide whether you're aware of it or not. You could not be conscious of it till later, and we make the assumption the universe is happening to each of us. If you say, "Gosh, what a bad day. I am so unlucky. Life is so hard, I hate it. I will fail in life. I will never be successful." Try to look at it from a new perspective. Ask yourself, what is my own universe? Or what is my subconscious mind? Do I have the right perspective in the way I view the world? That try to teach me about my higher self? So that you may realize. You might go to school and learn the didactics for many years. You can study again and again. But you will never get grasp of it until you actually experience the work itself. You see, experience is the best method of learning something. And many others will ask, what does this whole stuff mean? You can read or search on internet how to save or help endangered animals or avoid floods and pollution. You'll know that everything we assess will just be projected back to us. That's why not until you down to rabbit hole. You cannot say, yes, I know how. I can easily do it because I read about it. It is not wrong to believe that you can do something, but you have to experience it to do it right. Hermes, you may also discover a lot about him. There are other books, such as Kybalion, which is gained by the 3 initiates. You can find it on YouTube if you want to listen to it. It's excellent. It's fantastic. During the same period, a translation of the Emerald Tablets was released. So we're referring about the early 20th century. There was a sort of a mini renaissance going on in the early 20th century. There have been several advancements in physics. Around about that era, you can encounter individuals like Walter Russell. They began to form groups of like-minded polymathic intellect, such as the Twilight Club in New York City, founded by Walter Russell. So basically, from around the beginning of the century until perhaps the 1929 crisis, there was this tiny small kind of thing. There was also a very intriguing time. That was the Roaring Twenties, and there was a totally distinct philosophy and idea at the time, and art was also flourishing. Folks were going through such kinds of expansions at that historical period. You can read about people such as Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner, who were kind of stars during this time of the history, up until the late 19th century. There was this development going on, and one of the results was not just the work of the Kybalion, but the Emerald Tablets of Thoth too. Tablets have been in existence for a long time. Yet, there are other translations of it. This one was a channel translation produced by a man named Doriel. So I check into that since it relates the story of the Atlanteans as well. So it traces back in past and recounts a tale, and Hermiunu basically claims in this writings that he designed the pyramid, that he was the architect of it, which is ironic since in Egyptian literature they tell the tale of Hermiunu. He would have served as the Great Pyramid's architect, but Hermiunu sounds similar to Hermiunu. There might absolutely be some type of relationship between the two, and once you discover that, you can get the entire tale of how Atlantis experienced, as well as how civilization was preserved, the way they relocated to Camp Kim, Egypt. And you may view of him as the monarch of the land as well. In fact, for many thousands of years. So far, in general, that narrative is worthwhile to read. It has something that makes us all wonder if anything is worth reading or listening to. And when the ideas enter your consciousness, there's something incredibly strong about the book. It's captivating. It's composed in a pretty prose-like style, thus it's extremely well written. It seems like scripture, it has a hallowed sense to it, and I've definitely listened and read it at least 200 times. Every moment that I listen to it or read it, I learn something new. Once you've read Kybalion, I'm confident you'll start experiencing additional synchronicities soon. The amount of synchronicities you begin to notice and encounter in your day-to-day existence is one of the definite signs of the way to enlightenment, or what Carl Jung refers to as the individuation process. As we recognize that everything is in our minds, we know that we are all one and that we are all collectively bound through this consciousness. And then, once you've gotten over that thought, since it requires a great deal to break free from materialism and enter mentalism, you can begin to practice correspondence, which is the second of 7 Hermetic principles. I suppose the first time I realized it was before I understood much about anything, when I started exploring fractal geometry and what does fractal geometry even imply. Thus, if you were to magnify an EKG of your heart wave right now, so you have a QRS complex as well as a T wave. However, if you close in on the dead area in between, continue zooming and zooming, the same wave will appear again in a fractal structure at a smaller size. It's not a fluke that we've recently been able to see what it means to view a black hole as of a few years ago after the image of something I can't recall the name of the woman who essentially was doing the study and caught a photo of a black hole that was uploaded on the internet. Right now, we're stretching that line of ignorance further and further out. We still don't know what dark matter is. What exactly is dark energy? We are still learning more about dark energy and dark matter. Perhaps this is only an analogy for portions that are within our subconscious mind that we still haven't become completely aware of. I believe there is within significant circles among parts of the physics community as you proceed to dig deeper and deeper into this. We may go through this reductionistic route and just accept that every time we seek for anything, whatever it is, we will discover it. What we are given in this life is not always what we deserve. It's just what we were expecting for. Whether you anticipated it either subconsciously or consciously. This resulted in anxiousness. We are responsible for the daily living conditions that we experience. 90% of what transpires to us is not really happening to us. It's what we thought happened to us. It brings us back to the mental realm of a mental world. What else can I learn from this moment? Why am I imagining this experience? Or why am I viewing things through this different perspective? What can I get from things I do every day? Therefore, in that perspective, every person you encounter may teach you something, and every scenario that arises can have a synchronicity or not. It's all up to you. You decide and get the result based on it. You lead yourself the way.